So good morning, everybody. Appreciate everybody being on the call or the webinar this morning. We've got a treat. We've got, as we call him, Coach Lindsey Byram on this morning. He's going to talk to us about annuities, which is the next segment of, we've done a lot over the last few weeks about life with living benefits. And today we want to shift gears because, we come across people at time that perhaps are uninsurable, but more importantly, perhaps they've got some money sitting in the bank or in a 401k from an old employer, and where do we put those dollars? So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Coach Lindsey. We really appreciate you being on this morning with us, Lindsey, and sharing with us your knowledge of the last 40 years. So take it away, Coach.
Al, thanks, brother. Thanks a bunch. And it's my pleasure and truly an honor to be on here and to be a part of the team. And I mean that with all that's in me. It's a lonely world out there, gang, when we got to do this stuff by ourselves, and be a part of a team that, again, supports one another and helps one another, encourages one another, means absolutely everything, because, as you know, most people don't get that. Corporate America doesn't work that way. So to be able to come and have, again, teammates like Brent, like Mike, like Al, like Dave Regis, different ones, and I can, Ramsey, Leo, people that really do care, and us trying to win and make a difference makes a difference in our lives and ultimately in our career. So again, it's a privilege and an honor to be a part of Freedom Builders. I'm very thankful for what Al and Barbara and Mike have brought to our business down here in Texas, coming down to help us get jump-started a few years back, and what a blessing that's been, and what great leaders they are. So I'm going to try to make this, again, kind of informal, very informal. And let me give you just a little background, again, talking about annuities. I just was sharing with Al and Mike and Brent before we got started that, I had a kind of a change in direction in my career. And as Al said a while ago, this year will be 44 years that I've been involved in this business, and was full-time from the day that I started at 21 when I got out of college. So it wasn't a part-time thing for me. It wasn't let's see whether or not this is going to work. It was a sink or swim deal. It was learn some skills, develop some skills, become good at what you do, if not great. And I mean, the key thing, gang, again, is learning people skills. When you get down to it, as I mentioned Al a while ago, this is not so much about what we say as it is in any of what we do, how we say it. Absolutely critical and important. So I want to, again, just start first of all with a kind of a devotional thing. Coming off of yesterday, for me, it's always very moving when we talk about Easter and the significance of that and what it means. Again, very moving to me. And this was something I heard yesterday the pastor say, and it really, again, it resonated with me, and I want to share this to get us started, kind of a devotional statement. Listen at this, because I think, again, if we're serious about what we're doing, first thing we need to be cognizant of and aware of and mindful of all the time is that we are, I believe, ambassadors of hope in our marketplace, because we're going against the grain with what's traditional out there, and people got to see that. They got to, and even more so, that they got to feel that. They got to get that from us. We got to be able to transfer feelings, and I'm going to encourage you to jot down some notes, because some of the things that I'm saying here, if you'll just jot them down and go back from time to time and go over them, where the things that we're saying, the statements we're making, if we can get those things knit into the fabric of who we are, to where that comes across to the people we're talking to, I promise you it makes all the difference in the world. Keep in mind to get and jot this down or put it on the sticky side of your brain. It's not so much what we say as it is how we say it. And our presentations, I believe, with all that's in me, whether it's IUL, whether it's changing your life in a recruiting presentation, or whether it's in annuities, gang, we got to be passionate about what we do. It's got to come across that, man, beyond a shadow of a doubt, this guy believes in what he's doing. Man, I sense that, I feel that, and if that's not there, you're not going to have the success that you want. And I'm not talking about manufacturing something that's fake. I'm talking about something that you really can get excited about and moves you. So of my career, that was absolutely essential for me. That again, that's why we talked about being crusaders in what we do. And so we have that passion about what we're doing. I've had people over the years that have told me, you know, that I've worked with and mentored and trained and all that kind of thing. And they say, you know, I'm just not as convincing as you are. I'm just not as convincing. You come across a whole lot more convincing than I do. And I always say, and the reason for that is you're not as convinced that what we're doing is right as I am, or as Al is, or Brent is. Man, I mean, people got to know beyond a shadow of a doubt, this guy believes in what he's doing. And believe me, it makes a difference. So here's the devotional statement that I was talking about there that again, I encourage you to put this down, because we've got to see ourselves as what I believe we are and who we are. And again, ambassadors of hope. Hope is one of the biggest words, in my humble opinion, in any language. Without it, gang, without hope, there's no life. There really isn't. As a matter of fact, I saw one time on a marquee at a church that I passed one day, years ago, probably again 40 years ago, and it said on that marquee, it said, the true dead person is the one that has no hope. So that's what yesterday was all about. That's what Easter is all about. It's about hope beyond death. And I praise the Lord for that. But here again now is my statement, and we're really going to get started. Where there's no hope for the future, there's no power for the present. Now think about that one. Let that one kind of bounce around in your head a little bit. Let me repeat that again, because it's absolutely critical that we sense this and feel this. Where there's no hope for the future, there's no power for the present. Gang, we got to have hope, and we got to be able to distribute hope if we want people to follow us. Now, let me give you a few things here I want you to write down, or again, put on the sticky side of your brain, okay? I'm just going to hit just some comments that I think are important before we actually get into the presentation, because I think, again, getting the verbiage down about what we do is absolutely critical. Now, I'm one that believes that our message, whether it be living benefits, whether it be change your career, a career option, a life change, whether it be qualified money and retirement, any of that kind of stuff, again, got to be completely and totally sold out that what we're doing is right. And it's got to be an event of emotion, far more so than one of logic. Now, gang, no doubt about it, what we do has to make sense, but the logic in most cases is not what moves people. It's the emotion. We've got to get people wrapped up in what we're doing. We've got to move them from the heart versus trying many times to move them from the head. So we've got to get our presentation where it goes from the head to the heart. And when we become good at doing that, the ball game's over. I'm here to tell you. Let me just give you an idea real quick. Again, kind of my career. Again, just some of the things. And I want to say this not to impress you, but as Bloom says, to impress upon you the importance of what I'm about to say. In the annuity business as a whole, and I started in it about 18 years ago. It was about the year 2000. And I was sharing with Al, I got tired of underwriting and life insurance and all that. And back in those days, annuities were a one-page application. And you talk about getting a return for your time. What I've experienced over the years with that, there's nothing like it. I mean, literally, I've had times that my time was worth $5,000 and $10,000 an hour. He's saying, oh, come on, wait a minute, man. You're exaggerating. No, I'm not exaggerating that. I'm telling you that in some cases, sit down with the right people in the right market, you may spend 2 or 3 hours and have that kind of return on your money, because you're talking about something not everybody else is talking about out there. And for sure, they're not talking about it like I do. and getting that presentation across. But let me give you some things here. And what I was going to say is in the annuity marketplace, the average sale is $40,000. Okay, $40,000. Over my career, and again, I'm saying this to impress upon you, as I say, not to impress you, mine has averaged about 200,000. Now, that's a big difference, okay? And it's not because I'm so good, but what it is because I'm so passionate and I believe so much in what we do. And I was never afraid to ask for the money. See, most people are scared to death to ask for the big accounts. And I found that out by going in behind people many times, working with clients with some of the organizations that I worked with. They would send me out there because I was head and shoulders above everybody else in terms of the volume per sale or a premium per sale. Because again, I mean, I got people wrapped up not in the logic of, some of the things that annuities do. I mean, you can't get overly excited about, annuities average for the most part about 5 to 6% return over a given period of time. So that's nothing that's overly exciting, or, a bonus here, there, whatever. And some of those things, again, are good and make sense and are a part of, making that sale happen. But, to get people, again, to really respond, they've got to know some things and sense some things and feel some things that they're not getting from most other people. So I say all that to say the difference between $40,000 a sale and $200,000 a sale is not what you say, again, but how you say it. So please, again, understand that and pay some attention to some of the things we're going to go through. I'm going to give you now some, what I refer to, again, as power phrases. I encourage you to write this down, pay attention to some of this, because this is the difference in winning big and just doing a mediocre job. And there's not one of us on this webinar that's interested in just being mediocre, average and ordinary. We want to do something special with our life, and we want to make a significant difference. Okay? Jot some of these things down, if you will. Okay? It's an economic and mathematical fact that you can't properly retire without some sort of an annuity that will guarantee income. An economic and mathematical fact. It's not just a concept. It's not just a good idea. If you're really concerned about having a stable, predictable retirement, impossible to do that without some form of an annuity product that will give you a guaranteed income that, now here, again, powerful thing, you've got to learn to get this in everywhere you can. An income that you can't outlive. See, we already know, we talk about it a lot, but we got to again, get it in our heart and understand when we're talking to people. This is a retired person or someone, again, that's trying to get prepared for retirement. Their number one concern is outliving their income. In years past, it was just the whole concept of dying. That was the thing that most people feared. Today, it's living too long and outliving their income. So when we start talking about income that you can't outlive, for most people, if it's presented correctly, that strikes right at the heart. I'm concerned about that, and what can I do to solve that problem? Okay? Another little power phrase when I'm talking to people. We're the safe money guys. Safe money. Does that make any kind of an impact? And when I'm talking, again, now third party with people, does that impact you at all? When I talk about safe money, is that something that you're concerned about? Most people say absolutely. Okay? Safe money guys. Again, predictable. That's a big word when we're talking about this. Being predictable, what people can count on. Predictable income you can't outlive. Is that a big deal to you? See, and I've learned too over the years when I'm asking these questions, see, again, I'm setting the table before I ever get into a presentation when I'm dealing with somebody new. I'm setting them up to receive the information that I'm going to give them. Is it important to you to eliminate as much as possible the stress in your life? Or is there something about stress that you like? See, people say, no, I don't like it. Okay, then that's what we're talking about here as well. Eliminating stress in your life, which is one of the primary things in just about all kinds of illnesses and sicknesses, particularly with cancer. They say that 90% of all cancers are stress related. Think about that. We live in a very stressful society, even more so as we get older and start having to deal, for most people, in some of these things we're talking about here. How are you going to live for the rest of your life, and what kind of a quality of life are you going to have, or do you want to have? Very important questions. Are you interested? Here's an important question as well, gang. Very important. Are you interested in maximizing your retirement? See, when I'm talking to somebody about the assets that they have, I want to identify, particularly with what they've got now, is this earmarked specifically for your retirement? Because if it is, if this is what this is for, then wouldn't it make sense to maximize it as much as possible? Now, see, gang, I'm one that I really think for people that's a consideration. That's something that they want to do. Some of the income riders are very critical to be able to do that. And we can maximize what they've got and give them some guarantees that are substantial. And we'll talk a little bit about some of that as we move along here. Here's another big question for me, probably the biggest one maybe of all of them that we're going to ask. And it goes like this. How much, Mr. Client, Mr. and Miss Client, of what you've got can you afford to lose? Now that'll put them back in their seat. If you're preparing them and moving them along in the manner that we're talking about here, again, getting emotional and getting, just right down to what is it you want in life? What are the things that are important to you? How much of what you've got can you afford to lose? It's taken you 30 years to accumulate what you've got. Now, this is very important. How much of that could you afford to lose? I'm letting you know, in the almost 20 years that I've been involved in the annuity side of the business, I have never, ever yet had one person tell me, I can afford to lose 20%. I can afford to lose half of it. They always say the same thing. Well, I can't afford to lose any. And of course, then my question becomes, when they're in mutual funds and accounts like that, then what are you doing in an account, in an investment vehicle where you can lose money? And of course, you get all kinds of answers. Well, this is what was recommended to me or whatever. If you could change that, would you want to? Okay. Next thing that I always, again, throw in there somewhere where it's appropriate and it fits, for people that are in mutual funds, that are in the market, that are in volatile positions with their accounts. I always like to ask them again, about the loss factor. How do you feel? See, it's always very important, I believe, to ask people when we're talking about some of these things, how do you feel about that? How does that make you feel? Would you like to change that if you could? If we could show you a better way, would that be something you might be open to? See, again, leading them your way. And I always like to say, when we talk about losing money, so we talk about, 2008, we're back again, 2002, again, when the market took the big dips, and we're talking about that and how that makes you feel. If you could stop the bleeding, would you want to? Are you ready to stop the bleeding? See, a lot of people out there are bleeding to death financially, a little bit at a time. In some cases, like what we're experiencing now with the way the markets seem to be today, it's big hemorrhages at a time. Are you ready to stop the bleeding? Another thing we want to talk about, minimizing management fees. We know, again, we talk about that all the time. Again, the cost of somebody managing an investment account. You know, you probably are aware of this, but there may be some that aren't. For every point that we pay in fees, it knocks 10 years off our retirement. Now, I'm going to tell you, when you start sharing that with people, they find that hard to believe, but then it starts moving on them. And you can, again, we encourage them to go and look at places, Google up 401ks, Google up information in regards to deceptive fees, hidden fees, and let them see that for themselves. If you're paying for every 2 points that you're paying in management fees, cut your retirement in half. Now, if we could eliminate some of that, how much difference would that make in their retirement? And just to give you an example, you know, Al talked about, you know, that want to do a little bit of product training here. Now, myself, you know, all of us, you know, develop products and such that we're more comfortable with, and we like presenting. And we've got some great products. We've got some great companies that we represent, whether it's Anaco or F&G or AIG, whoever it may be. We've got some great companies and they have some great products. But myself, for a number of years, even before we took on Phoenix Life with FEG, I used their product primarily because of their income rider. Now, I'm just going to throw you something out there again to think about the impact this has when we're talking to people. Now, keep in mind, I'm talking to somebody that I've already identified that what they've got is what they're counting on and dependent on for retirement. So when I ask them, is it important to maximize that and get the biggest bang for that buck? Is that important for you? Most people will say every time, yes, it is. Let me give you an idea here again of just the roll-up rider, income rider that Phoenix has. Now, and when you're presenting this, think about this as I put it out here to you. What kind of an impact do you think this has on people when you ask them this kind of a question? Okay, I just went through again what the management fees, 1 point and 2 points can do that you pay in fees. Now, again, on a 401k, we know the average is about 3%. So we can see at 1% and 2% what that does. Half of your doggone income is gone. But on an income rider, with Phoenix as an example, Phoenix Life, and again, let me just say to you, that's a company that's been around over 100 years, 150 years. Matter of fact, they paid the death benefit on Abraham Lincoln. Now, do you think I get that in there in the presentation when I have an opportunity? You bet I do, okay? They've got an income rider that they have 2 options on their income rider. And I'm just going to throw this out, so write this down, income rider, Phoenix, so you can kind of get an idea of the impact this has for people, okay? Their income rider has 2 options called Income Today and Income Tomorrow. And basically, just to kind of, again, make it brief, if they're going to start drawing income within, say, the first 3 to 4 years, if that's what their intentions are, you'd want to present to them the Income Today rider that they've got, which over 24 months, just 24 months, will bonus their account up to 45%. 45% increase on whatever that they put into that contract. Immediately, it's bonused at 30%. More, then at the end of the next 12 months or 24 months, it's another 7.5% for a total, again, of 45%. That's a pretty big deal. But in most cases, the ones that I've worked with, normally, again, can let their money work a little longer than that, okay? Phoenix's Income Tomorrow bonus is a 14% simple interest paid on the initial deposit, guaranteed for 10 years. Now, again, simple interest, so don't confuse them and let them think that's going to be compounding every year. It's a 14% roll-up on what the initial deposit was. Let's just use 100,000. If they put 100,000 in that account for the next 10 years, besides what the normal account will produce, based on the strategies that they're put into, they've got a guarantee on that income rider of $14,000 a year that's added to their account. Gang, over 10 years, that's 140% return. Simple interest. Now, when you tell them that it's a management fee on strictly that income rider of 95 basis points, what that means is they're paying $950 a year on $100,000 to be guaranteed an increase every year of $14,000. Now, let me ask you a question. How many years, if you could, would you pay $950 to get $14,000 back? Is that a tough decision? It isn't for most people either. When presented to them that way and help them understand this is building for them predictable, guaranteed income that they can't outlive. And again, this is based upon money that's going to be exclusively set aside for retirement purposes. You wouldn't want to do this if this account is a put and take account. You know, where they want to put money in and take it out. They need a new refrigerator, so they go take money out of their annuity. See, that's not what this is designed for. This is designed exclusively and primarily for retirement income. And by the way, the average statistic is that 90% of all annuities that are written, people never even take money from. So just so you kind of know, most of the annuities in past has been for the purpose of passing on to your family. So anyway, just a little simple thing there. That's why I like Phoenix, because there's no one else out there that has an income rider that works like that. That you pay $950 a year to be guaranteed $14,000 that are credited to your account every year on that $100,000 account for the next 10 years. Now, run an illustration and show them again how they've more than doubled their income, their base, for to be able to draw income from, and watch how quick they get excited about what you're talking about. How all of a sudden, you know, their account is twice as much guaranteed to them and produces a guaranteed income for the rest of their life. Pretty powerful thing. Okay, so just some things there to think about before we actually get started in the presentation. And so I hope that some of those things help, because as I'm saying to you, they make all the difference in the world when they're used in a timely way, and that you put together your presentation to where it makes sense and it becomes a very moving, emotional thing. Keep in mind that the greatest emotion that we experience as human beings, the greatest emotion of all is love. Okay? God's love, number one. Number two, the second greatest emotion in life is fear. And what we're all about here, again, is getting them to be concerned about the fear of loss. So that's where, again, we're talking about it's got to go from logic to emotion. How much can you afford to lose? And do you want to shoot dice with your retirement? See, there's some old hardhead guys out there that do. But I promise you this, that the number one thing that's important to ladies is something called security. And I bat about 100% when I sit down with women and talk to them about their retirement, because I haven't met one yet that wants to take a chance or take a risk or is a gambler at heart. A lot of men are, but with ladies, they are all about being secure and safe. And when I would go in and talk to husband and wife, believe me, I directed most of my presentation we're talking about here to the woman of the house, because in most cases, she is normally the ones, again, that makes the ultimate decision. Like I said, you're going to have some old hard-head guys out there in some cases, but by and large, most of the time, the women, again, they control what goes on in that family. So keep that in mind. On to the presentation, gang. Thank you for enduring that. But there were some things in what I had to say that I think, to me, are critical and important about, again, setting the table for what it is that we're about to do. So let's go on now to the presentation. Let me flip through some of these slides that I have here, again, this is designed to be very simple. This is not to be complicated. It's not to be, again, blow them away with all this intricate stuff, that we could say and do. It's about being very transparent, about being very practical in the sense of things that are important for people in retirement. So let's go through a few of them. You can see right now, the first screen, the first slide here, Freedom Equity Group. Why annuities? Why would I even want to talk to somebody about it? Because it's an essential fact that to retirement properly, like I said earlier, somewhere in there's got to be some annuities to be able to give a guaranteed predictable income. I always like to ask folks when we get started, and let's say I use a presentation like this, or I'm just talking to them, like we've been going through here for the last several minutes. Do words like, or are words like safety, security, guarantees, predictability, peace of mind, privacy, risk-free, are those words that are important to you? And I'm telling you, I've never had anyone yet of all the folks I've sat down in front of that have said to me, no, I'm not interested in any of them. They all say, sure, those are important. Well, let me just say, annuities provide all of these and more. So if those things are important, I think you're going to like what we're going to talk about, okay? Let me give you a little history. Now, this stuff, again, in my opinion, is very good because it kind of sets people at ease. A lot of people have misconceptions about annuities. Many of them think when you use the word annuities, it means annuitize. And that's not the case at all. As a matter of fact, annuity products today are far, far different than what they were in years past. So there can be a bad stigma out there. And let me just say to you as well, your broker, or these people's broker, they're going to make them think that annuities are the absolute worst thing they could possibly do. And the reason for that is that it is directly opposed to what the broker is all about. He wants to have that money available to move and buy and sell because that's how he gets paid. Anything that would be a long-term type of agreement, they don't want to have anything to do with it all. So they're going to make their clients or the people that they deal with think this is the absolute worst thing you could possibly do, and not the case at all. History of annuities. In the history of America, there's never been a dime lost in an annuity contract. Is that a big deal? For most people, absolutely it is. So again, gives them a feeling of comfort. Annuities have a rich, colorful history tracing back to the Roman Empire. Gang, that's over 2,000 years. Soldiers received annuity payments as compensation for their military service. So this is not something new. It's tried and proven, and it's been around a long time. Okay, annuities crossed the Atlantic to America in the mid-1700s. So it's been here a lot longer than anybody we're going to talk to, okay? One of our founding fathers, and for any of y'all that's up in the Northeast, gang, this really is going to be powerful up in there. Boston, Philadelphia, Philly, up that way. Again, Ben Franklin gave the cities of Boston and Philadelphia an annuity in his will. That's what old Ben left for those cities, okay? Franklin's, now look at this, how powerful this is. Franklin's Boston annuity continued to pay out until the early 1900s when the city of Boston opted to stop receiving the payments and took a lump sum distribution of the remaining balance. Now, gang, that was over 200 years. Old Ben was back there, again, late 1700s. They were getting a payout from his annuity 200 years later in the 1990s, and then took a lump sum. Again, not a bad deal. Talking about income you can't outlive, old Ben, I'm sure, was real proud of what he was able to do for Boston and Philadelphia. Look at the next one. Again, another historical monument for the Boston area. Even old Babe Ruth. We got any baseball fans in here like I am? See, I love talking about that. I love talking about baseball anyway, but I like to talk about things like this when I'm dealing with folks. The great Sultan of Swat recognized the value of annuity contracts, avoiding the stock market by purchasing annuities, allowed him to miss out on the stock market crash in 1929. How much did the Babe lose? Nothing. when people in the market, they were jumping out of windows and all that kind of thing that we're aware of, because overnight, in some cases, their wealth was gone, not babes. Okay? While the Great Depression played out in front of them, the annuity checks continued to come in, and they did not stop when Babe died in 1947, but continued to pay out his widow until her death later in 1976. So after Babe passed, the annuities that he set up paid his wife for another 30 years. Income they couldn't outlive. When UPI sports editor Milt Richmond asked Ruth to name the smartest move he ever made, it wasn't about his batting stance or all the batting practice he took, none of that kind of stuff. Said the Bambino's answer was buying an annuity. Think about that. Those kind of things, those kind of stories make a difference to people. Why consider an annuity? Very profound question here that I use a lot with people, and it makes a difference. You know, if you've got a retirement account that you've been accumulating for 25, 30, 35, 40 years, wouldn't it be wise to protect and preserve what it's taken you a lifetime to accumulate? Wouldn't that make sense? Most people always say, well, yes, it would. Okay. You have car insurance, property insurance, health insurance, and every other kind of insurance. Wouldn't it be wise, again, using that word, careful again, wise, to insure your retirement funds? How easy would it be if you're 65, 70, 75 years old? Could you make up the 30 years, the 35 years that it took you to accumulate that? Probably not. Wouldn't it make sense if we insure anything to insure the 30 years or 35, 40 years that it took me to accumulate this retirement income that I'm going to need to the day that I die? Wouldn't that make sense, along with everything else that you insure? The answer to that is absolutely. Of course it would. How many 401k accounts that are in the stock market are insured? Correct. The answer is none of them. Okay? We're the safe money guys. We show you how to protect and preserve what has taken you a lifetime to accumulate. People need to know that, gang. 5 advantages of annuity. Number 1, privacy. Big deal. Number 2, bypass probate. Number 3, incontestability. Big deal. Number 4, earn interest 3 ways. And number 5, tax deferral. Let's just touch upon each one of these pretty quickly, because again, this is what you're presenting to somebody, the logical side of why you might want to consider an annuity. Number 1, privacy. This is huge. Your funds are not public knowledge. Gang, every one of our cities, for the most part, has these ambulance chasers that we've talked about, attorneys that, again, go for the throat kind of thing. We've got the one down here that's been around for years. He calls himself the Texas Hammer. That if you get on his list, he's one tough dude and he's going to make your life miserable. And if you got anything, he's going to get it. Well, if what you have is not public knowledge, the Texas Hammer doesn't have awareness of it. See, these attorneys have interns that work in their offices, and when they get onto somebody, what they have them doing is what they call discovery, looking to find out if Al Cardi has assets that they can attach. See, if your funds and your assets don't show up as public knowledge and they can't find any assets, they leave you alone and go on to somebody else. So being able, again, to have privacy with what you have, an annuity provides that. And in a situation where something could happen that would get the Texas Hammer on your back, could be the difference between hanging on to what you've got and paying it out to somebody else in a legal circumstance. Think about that. Creditor proof. They can't attach or take your annuity benefits. Examples like it shows here, O.J. Simpson. They took everything he had for the most part, even his Heisman Trophy, okay? But he gets $25,000 a month from an annuity payout from the NFL every month like clockwork. Because again, it was unattachable, creditor proof in an annuity. Ken Lay from Enron, everybody knows the Enron story. Lost everything, multiple houses and homes that he had. Lost everything he had with the exception of a $40 million annuity account. Okay? Another one that comes to mind, Mike Tyson. Everybody knows Mike Tyson, okay? Heavyweight. Same thing, all kinds of legal issues and problems, but he lives today on the benefits that come from money that he put aside in annuities. So creditor proof, is that a big deal? Absolutely it is. Interest earnings are legally not reported on federal or state income tax returns. Pretty dadgum big deal, especially if we're in a stage in retirement where we're on entitlement programs like Social Security and Medicare. You know, having income that we talk about again, tax-free income. See, it doesn't show up as earned income. That's a big deal when you're talking about entitlement programs like Social Security and Medicare. And so this whole thing, the whole concept of an annuity is referred to, it acts as what's called a wise man's or a wise person's trust. It's like setting up a trust, a family trust that doesn't cost you $10,000 to set up. It's automatically part of what an annuity will do. It acts like a trust, but there's no cost to have to set it up. So think about that. How many people do you think out there are aware of that and know that? I'm here to tell you, after almost 20 years of presenting these things to people, I haven't run into anyone yet that was aware that these kind of things can be achieved through annuity contracts. Bypassing probate expedites transfer of your funds, because again, it's a named beneficiary. You don't go through the process again of all the probate and all that kind of immediate transfer. Your funds will be passed immediately to your named beneficiary. Whoever is the named beneficiary on that account, money goes directly to. As soon as they get the information they need, death certificates and that kind of thing, immediately passed on without any kind of probate or problem. Avoids legal fees, court costs, and considerable time delays, which again will eat up whatever benefit that you've got that's coming to you under normal circumstances with normal accounts. Incontestability, unlike a will, no one, and again I say no one, can contest your decision as to who will receive the designated funds that you've left. Named beneficiary again, and is immediately executed. You earn an annuity interest in 3 ways. Not too many places you can go and do that on what money that you have. You earn interest on your principal, you earn interest on your interest, and earn interest on the funds you would have paid normally in state and federal taxes. So think about that. Again, the power of the accumulation that annuity can have. And of course, tax deferral, it's unlimited. You say, okay, what does that mean? Why pay taxes on interest income unnecessarily? If you don't need the income, like qualified accounts, where you've got to start taking money, the government makes you take it at a certain period of time, you don't ever have to take money out of an annuity and can pass it on to your heirs and let it continue to accumulate, so you're not, again, having to pay taxes unnecessarily. It's your legal right to choose when or if during your lifetime to pay income tax on your interest income. Your choice, our choice. If you don't want to pay, you don't have to pay. 90% of all annuity contracts are passed on to the beneficiaries and never annuitized or withdrawals taken. Again, money for the purpose of moving on to your family. Always like to ask the question, because it always, again, gets a great response out of people when I ask them, you know, you've done a great job accumulating this money over the years. And out of what you've got, what you've accumulated now for 25, 30, 40 years, how much of it would you like to pass on to your family? Some of it or all of it? We can show you ways how to do that. Most people say, well, all of it, but how can you do that? That's another message, another story for another time, but those kind of things can be done, and it makes, again, a great part of the presentation. Accessibility to your money. Penalty-free withdrawals. Most contracts offer 7 to 10% withdrawal options without any fees, without any cost per year, whatever, again, the value of the account. It normally takes about, 10 days, 10 business days to have them, again, get your money to you. Options for nursing home riders. Again, riders that can be added to these contracts today that meet specific needs that people may have along the way that other things don't do or don't account for. The key to create a fixed monthly income you never outlive. Back again to the importance of that word. I always like to ask folks when I go with some of these power phrases and they give me their response, like again, the importance of income you can't outlive, or I can't lose any money. I don't want to lose any money. I want to stop the bleeding, all that kind of a thing. I always say to them at that point, remember that you said that, because we may have to go back and address that topic again at some point in the presentation. I always like, again, to look them right in the eyes and say, remember that you said that. And I'll smile. Because, again, I want to make sure they understand this is important. What you just said is critical. And if we need to go back and address that again, we will. And, of course, again, an annuity allows us to create our own personal pension for whatever amount that we want. And we, again, are in the situation to where that we control that personal pension and what it's all about versus somebody else controlling it for us, like the government, okay? Advantages of a fixed annuity or a fixed indexed annuity. No market risk. We all understand and know the power of indexing, eliminating the risk, minimizing the fees, minimizing taxes in some situations, okay? Takes away the nightmare of volatility in the market, removes stress like we talked about before. And I'll go back at that point and say again, how important is that to you? Is that a big deal? With most people, absolutely. Depression proof, guaranteed interest rates. You'll never earn less than the guaranteed rate of your contract. How does that make you feel? How do you feel about that? See, very important, I think, as you're going through this presentation or whatever presentation that you use, to pause from time to time and ask people, especially when you're dealing with very pertinent, very strong topical things like some of this that we're talking about here. How does that make you feel? What do you think about that? How do you feel about that? Get their input, get their thoughts on that. Very important, and it's a way, again, for us to be able to monitor, engage how our presentation is going, okay? Now, those were some of the basics, again, of just why an annuity, some of the features, some of the benefits that it offers to people. And what I'm going to do here now is just, for me, a lot of what I focus on when I'm dealing with people, out talking to them, is a lot about qualified accounts. And all of us are aware of that, what qualified accounts are, 401ks, IRAs, 457s, programs like that, those kind of things. And again, how big our marketplace is. When we first put this presentation together, there was supposedly about $18 trillion in qualified funds. My understanding now is that's up over $20 trillion. Now, gang, that is a huge and a big marketplace. See, and we don't even have to have a goodly percentage of that to make a tremendous amount of income and have tremendous success. As a matter of fact, we don't, as I say many times, we don't even have to have a slice of the pie. As big as that pie is, all we need to do is just kind of run the knife through the pie, and the residual that's left on the knife is mind-boggling as the kind of income and business that we can do in that marketplace. Keep in mind, again, $20 trillion. And here's how these accounts work. When we talk about qualified funds, see, it's all in what you say, not so much what you say, but how you say it. Because people never understood that this is how qualified funds work, like IRAs, 401ks. So I like to ask folks when they tell me they got one, how well was it explained to you? Do you really understand qualified funds? Most people say, no, I don't. Or I'll ask them, again, tell me what your understanding is of qualified funds. What does that mean? Most people say, I really don't know. I don't know. And I'll tell them what that means. Just the long and the short of it is that once you put your money into a government-sponsored qualified account, you now have to qualify to get it back. And they'll look at me like, are you kidding? And that's when I like to say again, how does that make you feel? You feel good about that, or do you feel not so good about that? That's why I don't feel so good about that. So I don't either. That's why I like to tell this story. Gang, let me share this with you again. This is critical. You might want to, again, jot this one down, put it on the sticky side of your brain. Something, hang on to what I'm about to tell you. And these qualified accounts that are out there, like all the ones we just went through, 401ks and all that, the government, now keep in mind, qualified account means the government owns that account. Go pull up what the definition is by the government of a qualified account, like a 401k or IRA, any of that kind of thing. It's a government-owned account. FBO, for the benefit of the contributor, whoever that is. If it's me, the government owns my IRA account. Now keep in mind again, they own that account, and it's set up for the benefit of Lindsay Byram. If somewhere along the line they decide, you know what, we're not going to give it to you. Can they do that? Yes, they can. How many people do you think are aware of that? I'm here to tell you, I haven't ran into anyone yet that was aware that that's how they worked. So very important that we're knowledgeable of these things when we sit down and share with people what it is that they're in and the options that we give them, how much greater of a benefit it is if they get what it is that we're talking to them about. How much control do you want over your funds? Some or all? How much of the government do you want in your business? How much do you want them to control your retirement? See, it's up to you. You make the decisions. I'm here again just to give you the information so you can make a qualified decision that best suits and works for you. How does the qualified account work? Two partners involved. Partner A, the individual, you and I. We put up all the funds and we take all the risks. Partner B, which most people, they're not even aware that they've got a partner. And I always like to say again, you are aware of the fact you have a partner on your retirement account now, aren't you? And they'll say like, what do you mean? I say, yeah, you've got a partner. It's called the federal government. It's called Uncle Sam. And they go, oh, okay. That's partner B. Here's what they do. They make all the rules, but they take none of the risk. It's all our money. But they're the ones that make all the rules that we've got to abide by. Partner B is now $20 trillion in debt. Your partner on that account, he's overladen with debt. So which partner do you think the decisions that are going to be made on this account are going to be made in favor of? You and I or them? Especially since they're the ones that make all the rules. Partner A has to qualify to get access to his or her funds according to Partner B's rules. So let me ask you a real important question. Whose funds then do you think they are? If that's how it works. You get some pretty outlandish looks and responses when they get what you just went through with them here. As a matter of fact, again, you're stirring them up to the point, again, of in some cases, I've seen almost rage. So at some point, I can ask them, are you ready to do something about it? Their responses most of the time is absolutely, what can I do? But see, again, we got to get them stirred up. We got to get them passionate about what it is that we're doing. Partnership agreement. Here's how it works. By this agreement that you're going into of a qualified account, Partner A and Partner B enter into this partnership agreement to share the proceeds of the partnership venture under the following conditions. Article 1, ownership. Partner A has 75% ownership. Now, if they're in a 25% tax bracket, they own 75% of the account. Partner B, the government, owns whatever the tax amounts are. 25%, if they go up, could be 35%, could be 50%, could be 90%. Has there ever been 90% tax? Yes, there has been. You got to go back to war times, but there were times that it was that much. Do you like to unilaterally give them that kind of control in your retirement? Back to my question, how much control do you want? How much control do you want to give away? Article 2, investment powers. Partner A is the custodian of all of the partnership's assets and has the right to make any and all investment decisions regarding that said asset. It can be in mutual funds, it can be in gold, it can be in annuities, it can be in real estate, it can be in just about anything, but you better think real seriously about where it is you're going to put it and what you're going to do with it if you want to have control or as much as possible. Here's Article 3 of this partnership agreement called Special Powers, and here's how it works, and see whether or not, again, was it explained to you like this. Partner B, Uncle Sam, your partner, is granted and hereby retains the unilateral and irrevocable power to change Partner B's ownership in the venture at any time without your consent. How's that make you feel? They just tell you, this is what we're going to take. This is now what we own. How's that make you feel? For any reason, they can do that for any amount, and Partner A, by his or her signature, ratifies and agrees to this special power regarding changes in ownership. Now, when you sign and set up that 401k or that IRA or whatever type of qualified account that it is, that's what you're actually agreeing to. Was it ever explained to you like that? Gang, partnership agreements, here's some review questions. And I always, again, like to ask these just to watch the response and the looks on the faces when I ask them. If you were Partner A, would you knowingly sign this agreement? They're going to say no. To date, no one who I have posed this partnership agreement would sign the agreement. However, unfortunately, and again I repeat, unfortunately, if you have a qualified plan like an IRA or 401k, you've already signed this agreement as Partner A. Now let me stop and ask you a question here. I know you weren't aware of it, but now that you are, how does that make you feel? What do you think about that? Would you want to change that if you could? Partner B is the federal government whose process server is the good old IRS. Now let me ask you a question. Do you have any kind of affection at all for the IRS? How much of an involvement do you want them to have in your life and in your retirement? Would you want to change that if you could? I thought so. Good answer. As you know, Congress has the power to mandate law changes. Most recent tax law rate changes was increased January 1, 2014, including changes to the tax code and tax rates. And again, like we present to people over and over again, do you think taxes are going to go up or you think they're going to go down? Good answer. They're going to go up, even though Trump has lowered them eventually again to offset that $20 trillion in debt and going up daily. The only way that they can get rid of that debt, for the most part, again, is to deal with taxes to be able to offset that. And most people, again, have no problem agreeing with you that the tax burdens that are coming our way are something that we need to be very aware of, especially going into retirement. And if there's something that can be done to minimize that or alleviate it in some ways, they're all ears about how can I do that. And gang, we have an answer. I refer to it as the financial gospel. The good news, things don't have to be the way that they are. they can be a whole lot different, but you got to be willing to make changes. You got to be willing to do something different to avoid the circumstances that we're confronted with today. And that's what we're here to do, is to give you options, to show you better ways that benefit you versus someone else. Gang, annuities can do a lot of things. These are just some simple things to use to create a hunger, a passion, and an anger about where people are. See, I'm monitoring the whole time that I'm talking to people. I'm monitoring, what their emotion level is. I like to ask them, as I said to you, how's that make you feel? What do you think about that? If you could change that, would you? And if we need to, we'll talk about it right there. But all of this, again, is based upon the things we talked about when we started, not so much what we say, how we say it, and getting people emotionally involved in their retirement and in their life. Al, that's all I got to say. I hope it made some sense. And I'm thankful, again, to have the opportunity to be a part of what we're trying to do and the difference we're trying to make as part of Freedom Builders. Thank you.
Great, Lindsay. Thank you very much. This was a great information. Of course, this will be in the back of Freedom Builder info under product training. I suggest you go back. This was some tremendous nuggets here today. And Lindsay, once again, I appreciate you taking the time. Next week, what we're going to try to do is give you some proposals on some annuities so now you can get a feel for how they work. Have a great day, everybody. Lindsay, thank you again. And for everybody else, thanks for participating. Have a great day.
Ralph, thank you.
Okay.